get some more on that breaking news story that the US Supreme Court has ruled against Donald Trump's global tariffs. Simon Marks joins me, LBC's Washington correspondent. We've been waiting for this ruling for some time, Simon. Put it in its context for us, if you would.
It's a massive moment, Sheila. The Supreme Court, by a ruling of 6-3, has outlawed Donald Trump's tariffs, virtually all of them, at least 70% of the tariffs that he has imposed as part of his global trade war, including the so-called Liberation Day tariffs that he unveiled last April against countries, including the UK. All of them are found to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. The justice is concluding that Donald Trump exceeded his authority by invoking emergency law to impose those tariffs rather than doing what the Constitution required him to do, which was to consult with Congress, which has the sole authority to vote for or against tariffs here in the United States against its trading partners. President Trump has spent weeks, months in fact, warning of the dire consequences for the country, and certainly the dire consequences for him, of this kind of a ruling emanating from the Supreme Court. He said it would bring chaos to the United States. It would be a disaster. Certainly it raises huge questions for his own government, because he's now due to refund $150 billion in duties that he has collected at the hands of importers since the tariffs came into force. Quite how he's going to begin the process of making those refunds and what sort of an impact that is going to have on the American economy is up for question. Now, the Trump administration claimed that they had a plan B in the eventuality that the Supreme Court rejected what he had done, and there was talk of President Trump very rapidly implementing a 10% across-the-board tariff. Whether that would be done in conjunction with Congress or not, whether it would spark another series of actions that might make their way up to the Supreme Court, we will have to wait and see. That will depend on precisely how the Trump administration handles this. But to be clear, this is a complete body blow for President Donald Trump and his government. Remember that Trump, his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, his garrulous Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, they have placed tariffs and the imposition of them not just at the center of America's trade policy, but they have made it a pillar of foreign and national security policy as well. Do something that the United States disagrees with. What's the president's immediate response? He doesn't impose economic sanctions like past presidents have done. He ratchets up tariffs. That now being rejected by the Supreme Court, Donald Trump being sent back to the drawing board. It is a disaster for him.
Because there's nowhere else for him to go, is there, beyond the Supreme Court? So if he rejects this ruling, he's outside the law.
Well, he's got no capacity to reject the ruling. I mean, I can't imagine circumstances.
Have you seen how he operates?
I mean, that would be the Donnybrook, right? That would be the complete Donnybrook of the executive president against the judicial system. And already, by the way, corporate America had braced themselves for this. Many of them had lodged advanced legal briefs so that companies could claim duties back from the U.S. government the second this ruling came in. Now, we have to wait to see exactly how the White House is going to react to all of this. Only yesterday, President Trump, of course, was in Georgia touting his stewardship of the economy, wanting to make the recovery, certainly, of the stock market the central issue as he begins his re-election efforts, his election efforts ahead of the midterm elections this November. So this puts him on the back foot in that regard. It also puts him in a terrible place, given that next Tuesday night he is supposed to be making his State of the Union address up on Capitol Hill, and this is certainly not the kind of development that he's going to welcome just 4 or 5 days before that.
And if people get lost in, and I do myself sometimes, in the sea of tariffs and what it means for both British and, just to focus domestically, British and US trade arrangements, I remember when they were first threatened, one of the callers to the programme was a British businessman who makes, a very small company, makes small and medium-sized but high-end motorboats. And he was saying that the tariff increase, depending on what it amounted to, was likely to put him completely out of business, because it would end, people at the other end of his market would just stop buying them.
Yes, and of course those consequences have already been paid by companies in the UK and in other parts of the world where the tariffs have had dramatic impact from the moment that they were first implemented. The Federal Reserve Bank, in a study that was published earlier this week, produced data suggesting that upwards of 70% of the costs of tariffs were being passed on to American consumers who are paying more for imported products. I mean, I can tell you just from personal experience, this week we had a shipment of microphone flags, those plastic things that advertise, LBC or other channels that you see on television from time to time. About 15 pieces of plastic that you wrap around microphones, and we had a shipment of those that were sent to us by one of the broadcasters that we work for that happens to be in South Africa, and we were required to pay $200 in duty to get that envelope through customs in Washington DC. So it's businesses at both ends, at the point of manufacture, because demand will have crashed, and also at the point of receipt in the United States, where everybody is having to pay either through lost revenues and lost jobs at the export end, or through higher costs here in the United States at the import end. Now, I don't, the lost jobs, of course, can't be immediately compensated for, but certainly importers are going to have the opportunity to try and get their money back from the Trump administration. And $150 billion being erased from President Trump's ability to crow about America's economic recovery, that is not chump change.
Yeah, and I imagine our own Treasury is starting to do some sums as well in light of this. Thank you perhaps they've already done them. Thank you very much, Simon. Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent.